I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. This week we're taking a look at George Washington Carver National Monument, special upcoming Carver Day celebration happening. Joining me, Curtis Gregory from the monument. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for having us.
This is your 75th year, which I know I've mentioned earlier this year on Newsmakers, but this is also the 75th Carver Day?
This is the 75th Carver Day. This is the whole idea of the event is for the 75th anniversary of the park. So, and again, this is the 75th Carver Day celebration.
So this is kind of like the big birthday celebration all wrapped in one.
Yeah, it's our big birthday celebration where we, honor Carver as well as the establishment of the park.
Great. Well, for people, and a lot of people who live locally and know about the park, but a brief history, how the park started 75 years ago.
Well, in 1943, January of 1943, Carver died, so this is also the commemorative year of his anniversary of his death. Shortly after he died in July of 1943, the park was established. And so we are the first park in the National Park System dedicated to an African American in 1943. 1953 is when the park actually opened.
So that took an act of Congress. You say established. It was something that went through Washington, D.C.
Sure, it was an act of Congress.
So celebrating this establishment, honoring him and his accomplishments, a lot of growth throughout the years. You probably was just a spot on the map when it started.
Yes, it was much smaller than it is now, and fewer visitors, and we get a lot more visitors than I'm sure in 1953 when the park opened.
Right. But throughout the years, you've been tying into this theme of let's educate, let's inform, let's share his life.
We share his life story by telling our visitors as well as kids that this is where Carver was born, and it was the formative years where it all got started at. And he was about maybe 12 or so, and he decided that he wanted to leave and get an education, and so he journeyed, left the Carver farm, and went to Neosho. Then from Neosho traveled throughout Kansas, made his way to Iowa, where he graduated from Iowa State, and then in 1896 went to Tuskegee, and that's where he stayed for the rest of his life.
Probably a lot of people nationwide, they think of Tuskegee as the name that goes, Carver goes with Tuskegee. Do you get a lot of visitors who are surprised to find out that we have this type of location in Missouri?
Sure, yeah, a lot of our visitors, when they're visiting, they see the big brown signs on the interstate, and they immediately, when they come into the visitor center, they're like, well, why is this place here? When I think of Carver, I think of the South.
Right.
And we tell them, inform them, and educate them that this is where Carver was born, and this is where he spent about the first 12 years of his life.
Right, so continuing to have that emphasis today. I know the National Park Service has a Find Your Parks theme, so is this kind of tying into that nationwide, make people aware what the parks, the monuments all have to offer?
Sure, yeah, that got started for the centennial of the National Park Service, and it's still a continuing campaign of, find your park, and a lot of visitors will come in, or locals, and find their park at George Washington Carver National Monument.
So you mentioned locals. Are you seeing a lot of local pride in this as well? It's not just, we're going to stop as you go down the interstate, like you say, because we saw the brown sign. There's a lot of people that this is our park.
This is, yes, we have a lot of local pride. And really, and our locals should be proud of our little park that we have in Southwest Missouri, because it's a neat little park, and we do have a lot of visitors that will come out, local visitors will come out, just want to walk the trail, or just come out and sit and look at some of listen to actually read some of Carver's quotes and stuff. So we do get a lot of visitors, and there's a lot of local pride, yes.
So really, that is their local park when they talk about it.
That is their park. They found their park.
And really, to me, it also seems to take the scope of what a National Park Service has to offer. It's more than just big mountains and prairies and parks, but you have the historical emphasis, the ties, the variety.
Sure, and we have a lot of little historical cultural sites. Sometimes we think of the Park Service, we think of the bigger parks, but the little parks are just as important.
Right, so preserving America's heritage and history.
Very much so, yes. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Carver Day. Of course, people are wanting to know about that. The date, I guess we'll start off with the who, what, where, when.
Okay, sure.
So it's coming up in July.
It's July 14th, and you know what? This year, it's the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the park, and the park was actually established on July 14th, 1943.
So to the day, you're having the 75th anniversary.
To the day for the 75th anniversary. So we have lots of, we have guest speakers. We have a wonderful guest speaker, Dr. Gary Kramer. Dr. Kramer is a Carver scholar, historian. He's done a lot of work on George Washington Carver. So he's going to be our guest speaker, music groups and such.
Okay, well, I know on the screen they're showing people kind of one of the flyers that has information. We'll kind of break it down as we go through and discuss what is happening.
Right.
But you can see it through the flyer and the promotions. I know there'll be a public service announcement people will recognize on television, giving them some of the details as well.
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about Dr. Kramer. His historical knowledge, you have some books with you today.
Yeah, I have some books with us today. Dr. Kramer wrote a book on George Washington Carver in his own words. And what it is, Dr. Kramer went through his letters, and he went through and edited and just basically talks about some of his letters. And so what's interesting also about Dr. Kramer is that in the early 80s, he was one of the first people that went through the Carver papers and basically kind of archived them for the National Park Service.
So before then, they'd really never been organized.
They hadn't really been organized. So he has a very deep connection to the park, and he's been a wonderful friend, consultant to the park, wonderful resource for a number of years.
So he has a long history with the park
yeah,
and tying
of the park
that together.
Well. Yes.
So a well-known scholar, obviously. He has written some other books as well.
Other books as well on Missouri, blacks of Missouri as well. He's really knowledgeable on African Americans in Missouri as well.
Oh, okay.
And so he's written some books on other aspects of black life in Missouri.
So the historical aspect that probably wasn't written a lot about at the time.
Exactly right. And Dr. Kramer is wonderful. He took time out to explore and to write about that as well.
And you mentioned reading his letters. When you're talking about writing a book like this one, going to the original source, like a letter,
Yes.
really lets you see inside someone. You find out what it's like to see their writing.
Right. You know, we'll get scholars or historians such as Dr. Kramer, and they'll come out there and they want to look at the letters, and they just want to touch the letters. You know, that Mr. George Washington Carver actually wrote himself. And you know, it really gives you a wonderful insight into the man himself.
Right. So you have historical research ability for people who are still wanting to find out more about his life. You have some things in the archives, in the storage for you.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have about 300 original Carver letters that we're very fortunate that the individuals donated back to the National Park Service, so we can share them with the American public.
Great. So he is going to speak. Tell me about his presentation. A certain theme he's taking?
I think he's just, well, I really am not sure what he's going to talk about, but I have a funny feeling he's just going to really talk about George Washington Carver.
Right, his impact.
And his impact. And what he's also going to do, the book that I was just shared with you is the second edition of Carver, George Washington Carver in his own life. He's going to actually do a signing of books, so visitors can come out and they can purchase the book or bring their book out and get it signed by Dr. Kramer as well.
Great. And of course you have a bookshop or a bookstore there where they could buy these books as well.
Yes, we have
those
a bookstore, yes.
And a well-known scholar, but he's also tied to the State Historical Society. Let's let people know about that as well.
Right, he's the executive director of the State Historical Society.
So in the state of Missouri, he's seen as a high-ranking, very knowledgeable person.
Very scholarly individual, and very nice individual as well. And I'm hoping that visitors will come out and they'll gain a lot of insight into George Washington Carver's life from Dr. Kramer.
And what time of day will that presentation take place?
That will take place at 12 noon.
Okay, so right in the middle of the daytime.
Right in the middle of the day.
Great, great. And you don't need reservations or anything. It's open to the public.
It's open to the public. Just show up. It's free of charge.
Great. And everything we're talking about on this program today, all these events and things that are taking place at that park, it's free admission to come in.
Yes, it's free admission. We're free every day.
Every day, continuing that.
Yes.
So you have a lot of other things going on. I know looking at your schedule, you have Paxton Williams. Some people may recognize that name from the region as well.
Yes, Paxton, and some of your visitors may recognize the name of Paxton Williams. Paxton was actually the executive director of the Carver Birthplace Association, which is our friends group, several years ago. And Paxton went on to do other things. And when he was in undergraduate school in Iowa State, went to Iowa State just like Carver, he wrote a play on George Washington Carver. And over the years, he's presented that play, I would assume, hundreds or thousands of times around the country. And so Paxton will be presenting that play and actually taking on the life of George Washington Carver.
So as we see a picture on the screen, that's part of his reenactment.
Yeah, that's part of his reenactment, kind of like almost like a living history character. And Paxton will be presenting that at 11 o'clock and at 2 p.m. as well.
Okay, so we'll have two presentations.
Yes.
You can catch him before the book presentation or afterwards
yes,
as well.
Right, yes.
So you've been working really hard on lining up these speakers, I imagine. It's been a special year to try to plan all this.
Sure, you know, we start Carver Day really planning right after the previous Carver Day and try to begin lining up speakers and, you know, just making networking and contacting folks and stuff. So we try to put a lot of effort into it. Yes.
Great. And I imagine the people we've mentioned so far were probably more than happy to say, yes, I want to be part of this special celebration.
Yes, of all of our guests, had no problem committing to it, yes.
Right. Well, in addition to that, people can listen to presentations, but there's also entertainment. So
yes, we have entertainment. Besides Paxton, we have a music tent that we will have, of course, outside, and we have a lot of some local musicians, and then we have a couple of nationally known musicians that will be performing as well that day.
Okay, and I think we have some pictures of those, but one of them I saw, Bruce Sun Pie Barnes. Tell me.
Yes, okay. Bruce Sun Pie Barnes is a musician from New Orleans, Louisiana. And actually, Bruce was a former Park Service employee, a park ranger one point, and actually he's an actor, of course a musician, and he actually at one point played football for the Kansas City Chiefs for a brief period of time. And now he's a full-time musician down in New Orleans, and he kind of has his own kind of brand on kind of Zydeco type of music, and he and his band, the Louisiana
the Sunspots.
The Sunspots will be there, and they'll be performing at 1:30 as well. So we're very, very happy to have Bruce.
So they're traveling up from Louisiana to share their music
and share
what they're doing.
Yeah, so we're really happy to have Bruce.
Great presentation, and that's something that people just pull up a lawn chair, sit and enjoy the music.
Yes, they can pull up their own lawn chairs. We'll have chairs, but they can pull up underneath the tent, and they can just enjoy the music.
Great. And you have other musical presentations as well? So
sure, we have others. We have we have Reverend John Wilkins, and John Wilkins has been a longtime performer at our Carver Day celebration, and he's actually from Memphis, Tennessee, and he will be coming, and he kind of does this kind of music, kind of northern Mississippi hill country.
Okay, so slightly different than what we're hearing from
blues
Louisiana.
Music, yes,
Right.
yes, and he's been a favorite of the park for several years, so he's back joining us again this year.
Great, and what time will he be performing?
He'll be performing at 12 noon as well.
Okay.
So you kind of have to, if you want to listen to music or come and listen to Dr. Kramer.
So there's always something going on throughout that
Right,
day.
there's
There's no downtime
throughout the entire day.
Right. You have other groups as well.
We have other groups. We have a local favorite in the area, which some of your visitors may know about, Kafara.
Right.
And Kafara will be performing at about 11:15 or so. And they are a local favorite, and they've been at previous Carver Days before, and they do a wonderful job, and we're so happy to have them back.
So they're coming back to help you out as well. And then choirs, you have some local choirs.
We have some local choirs from the Neil Shell Joplin area as well.
So if you want musical entertainment, that's a great day to go. Just spend some time.
If you just want it, we have visitors that will come out for the event, and they will just come out for the music tent, which will start at 10 a.m. and end about 3 or a little after 3.
So you can go back to back to back and listen to the presentations.
Back and listen and stay at that music tent all morning and afternoon if you want.
Right. Well, I know you have a lot of other things going on, some exhibits, plenty of things for the kids too.
We have a lot of activities for the kids to do. We have we'll have a section in the park for our Junior Ranger tent.
Oh, okay.
And there'll be a lot of different activities for the kids to earn a Junior Ranger badge,
Carver
a
Day
special
Monument.
Junior Ranger badge, which is for a Carver Day Junior Ranger badge. And so they'll do a little booklet, they'll go to different stations, and at the end of the day, they can come up to our volunteer tent and they'll get their Junior Ranger badge.
And for people who haven't done the Junior Ranger program, it's really kind of education, hands-on learning for these kids.
Hands-on education, kind of like a scavenger hunt, and all sorts of other cool little educational activities that they do in a book or such.
What age group do you recommend for this?
Oh, they can be as young as, 6, and sometimes we'll have them up to 62 that want to do it.
Yeah, right. Mom and dad can help the child.
Right, mom and dad
learn.
can help the children as well. So yeah, usually about I would say 6 or so on up.
Right. So when they leave, then they finish their chores or their tasks and learning. They can get one of these.
And they'll get a badge, kind of similar like the badge that we're wearing.
Great.
So that's a lot of fun. Our Junior Ranger tent is usually always full.
Right. So, and that will run throughout the daytime?
All from 10 a.m. till 3.
Okay. So when they show up, bring the kids there and get started there.
Yes. Right.
Other educational programs, things that you have going on?
We have other educational programs, but we have a lot of exhibitors, and a lot of our exhibitors are local exhibitors from some of our agencies that are around the area, our sister agencies like Missouri Conservation, Prairie State Park, where they'll be having booths set up, and they'll have educational activities as well.
Okay. Well, I know we have some pictures, I think, from past years, so if we can, kind of talk through and maybe help people visualize some of the things that we're talking about as we go through the pictures. But, that you have the exhibits, the things that people can do. Sounds like plenty of things. If you show up at 10 o'clock in the morning, you can very easily stay there till 3.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have visitors that will stay all day. And like on our front lawn, all of the activities will take place on our front lawn. And we'll have exhibitors all set up, the Junior Ranger station, station will be set up, and visitors just will walk around and just enjoy the different, like for example, the master naturalist of the area.
It looks like we have some plant sales here.
Yes, the master gardeners of the Neosho area, the master naturalist, Missouri Conservation folks will be there, and so we just have a lot of array of different exhibitors that will be set up all over the park, and visitors can go up and chat and learn about their organization, or if they're interested in plants, they can tell them about different types of plants that they can grow and such.
So these are probably native plants, things that are from this area.
From this area, yes. So all of our exhibitors are basically from from Newton County or Jasper County.
Okay, so they're the people that you would be encountering. And I see some, looks like some Civil War reenactors.
We have some Civil War reenactors that will come out and set up, and they'll set up and talk about the Civil War in this area.
Right, right. So there's a lot of history built into that presentation.
History, we'll have a lot of history demonstrators as well as kind of natural history demonstrators as well.
Great, great. So you can see a lot of people just visiting, a good time to visit with others and to find out what's with
their neighbors. We just have a lot of visitors that will come out and just visit, and they'll come out and they'll learn maybe more things about the park and such, or some of the area exhibitors.
So perhaps, some of the times you see somebody here with holding up a pelt or a snake or something.
Or snakes, and we'll have some visitors or kids who've never seen, they've seen snakes, but they've never touched a snake before. There's opportunities, again, for like hands-on learning and such.
Yeah, so here you are. Let me see that animal up close and personal.
Right, exactly. So it's a really fun day, and our exhibitors have a great time. The kids have a great time. That's one of our volunteers, Gail, who does a wonderful job, and that was part of the Junior Ranger Station.
Oh, okay.
One of the previous Carver Days.
Well, you mentioned volunteers, and as we continue to look at the pictures, it takes a lot of people working behind the scenes. Not only rangers like you, but a lot of people working behind the scenes to make this happen.
Judy, we could not do Carver Day or Prairie Day without the wonderful and outstanding volunteers, because they basically help with this event. If we didn't have volunteers, there's no way that we could do these type of events, and we appreciate the volunteers so much for coming out and giving and sharing their time.
So they're the people who are kind of on the front lines helping run these booths, these presentations, things that we're going to visit and see.
Oh, sure, yeah. Like I said, if we didn't have the volunteers, there's no way that we could do these events. They do. It's an outstanding job that they do for us, and we appreciate them so much.
For someone who's watching and says, well, how can I be a volunteer? It sounds like a fun place to go and things to do.
We are always looking for volunteers, and if anyone is watching and they're interested in volunteering, just give us a call at the park.
Okay. Not only for special events, you use volunteers year-round for many
volunteers
things?
Volunteers for all around. Front desk. We have our volunteer greeters. We have volunteers in maintenance sometimes that are interested in things behind the scenes. Right. So we're always looking for volunteers.
And all ages. I mean, you're
all
from
ages.
Someone who's retired to somebody who maybe just have weekends free.
Usually I think it starts to like 16 on up. Yeah,
right.
We get a lot of retirees and such, which they do a wonderful job for us.
Great. So another way to get involved and carry through. So your goal for the day for Carver Day, do you have any, for this year being the 75th anniversary, specific goal that you have in mind?
I don't really have a specific goal. I just want visitors to come out and to enjoy the park and to really kind of understand why the park is there, and understand this is our 75th year, which is outstanding for our small park, and to the legacy of George Washington Carver.
So while they're going to the booths and listening to the presentations, they can still walk down the trail through the woods, visit the house and all the things that are, part of the monument.
We'll have, on this event, we averaged about 800 to 1,200 visitors. And this is individuals that know about the park, but we normally have a lot of visitors that will drive up and what's going on today? And some will want to participate, and then others just want to come out and enjoy the park, to walk the 3/4 mile trail and just go in the woods and such.
So that's something, of course, that's open year-round. If you want to come out and see spring flowers, summer, fall, those seasons, you're there to take a walk through the woods and see it.
Sure, we're open 7 days a week, every day, 9 to 5, except for Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Day.
Do you find quite a few people who maybe that's their evening walk or their morning walk? They get up and say, let's go walk the trail.
Sure, we'll get a lot of visitors that will come out when the park gates open about 7. And sometimes at this time of year, we'll have visitors that are already there by 7 o'clock. And they're not really interested in coming in the visitor center, but coming out and taking a walk around the trail.
Kind of beat the heat. Let's get there early.
Yes, get there early or late in the afternoon or in the fall time as well.
Right. Well, with the 75th anniversary, are you finding perhaps nationwide more of an interest in George Washington Carver? Have you received feedback from other parts of the country or other organizations that are related to him and his life?
You know, we certainly have. We've received. We'll get some of the visitors that will come in, and they are amazed that it is the 75th year. Because when you think about it, we tell our visitors that it's the 75th year, and they think about it, that's 1943.
Right.
1943, you know, the country is kind of in turmoil.
We're in the middle of a war.
Middle of a war, and Congress took time out to establish a national monument in his honor. So we'll have visitors, we'll have other groups, some of the sites in Alabama, Tuskegee National Historic Site, as well as the university that are kind of interested in some of the things that we're doing as well.
Imagine you kind of have some ties between there. If somebody's interested in research, they can come visit your site for where he grew up, and then they go to the university where he did his work.
And go to the university, and we have a wonderful partnership with both institutions.
So tying those together, really learn about his life all the way through this path and what is being accomplished. Well, your visitor center, of course, it's open there year-round as well. A lot of educational material there, no matter what time of year. You've got a lot of interesting exhibits that you have there.
Sure, we have our static exhibits, which, you know, traditional exhibits, and then we have an upper level, which we call our educational interactive area, definitely for kids, and they can come and they can learn about sounds that Carver would have heard in the woods, and there's a writing station, there's a classroom, kind of like a science classroom, as well as a room that's dedicated to like a one-room schoolhouse where we do educational programs as well.
So they can kind of see a lot of those things that he was involved doing as research, but also as a youngster, maybe visualizing that type of classroom he may have been in.
Yeah, a lot of hands-on, maybe to how Carver's life was when he was on the farm in Diamond.
A lot of people may not realize how talented, not only was he well educated, but talented. He has a musical background, a lot of different aspects of his life.
Right, you know, most visitors, when they think of Carver, they come to the Carver and they think of peanuts. First thing they'll say, oh, peanut butter, I love peanut butter, until we tell them that Carver didn't invent peanut butter, right? And so they know about peanuts, but then when they leave the park, they are more informed about Carver was he was an artist, musician, humanitarian.
Picture of the book here, he's painting.
Right, and so many different aspects of his life. And a lot of the visitors are really amazed about his artwork because they had no idea that of his love for art.
That was his love for art. I mean, here's painting some beautiful flowers inspired by what he was seeing in nature in many cases.
Exactly, and most of the paintings that he did were basically landscape scenes and floral scenes and such.
So many different ways to look at his life and what he's doing. The Carver Day celebration, free of charge. Show up in the morning, stay through the afternoon.
It's free of charge. You can show up and stay all day if you want. And I forgot to mention another activity that we will have is our famous peanut milk. And kids like to come out and they make peanut milk, and we'll have probably maybe 1 or 2 different demonstrations of peanut milk. And they can come out and go up into our little science lab and make peanut milk.
That kind of sparked their curiosity. How do you make milk?
Right, how do you make peanut milk? Exactly.
So some hands-on application and learning and tying it together there.
Right.
You have obviously lots of parking space available. And I know in the past winter part of the road was closed, but that's all open now. And
that's all open now. We're back to open. The road is back to open now. You come to the park the normal way. We'll have lots of parking. We'll have overflow parking and such. But it's just a really fun day, so we're looking forward to it.
Great. Of course, it's one of the couple of special events. You have a number of special events throughout the year, and then we've mentioned you have ongoing programs throughout the year as well.
We have ongoing programs out of the year. We have Carver Day, which is one of our biggest ones, and then in September, September 8th, we have another one called Prairie Day. And Prairie Day is one of our other big events where we celebrate life on the prairie in about the 1870s when Carver would have been a kid on the property. And so that one's a little different. We'd have a lot more living history events. We have wagon rides and such. And we have for that event, everything's spread out over in the entire park. So you can go down where we have our 1881 Carver House, and you can do living history demonstrations, dip candles and such.
So mark your calendars for September as well.
Mark your calendars for September as well.
And I know you have a website, and people always say, how can I get more information? So how do they find out more information?
You know, they can, always call the park, or they can go to our website, which is George Washington Carver. .com,
right.
.gov, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And we have a Facebook account, Facebook page, a Twitter. You can find us on
social media is there to help you get that information out.
Right, exactly.
That together. So we're in June as we're recording this program, coming up on July. Are you seeing a lot of summer travelers coming through? I imagine that's a popular spot for vacationers to stop as well.
At this time of the year, yes, we're definitely seeing our summer tourists come in. A lot of visitors are driving on the Interstate 44 or 49. They see the big brown signs, and they're so curious about the park because they think of Carver, they think of the South, and then they come and then they learn that this is where he was born at.
Great. So that's part of the regional tourism. I know one of your sponsors, I think, was mentioned, Joplin Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Sure.
You're helping tie into tourism as well.
Right.
So you have a major impact on that.
Yes, exactly.
And tying that together. Well, what do you enjoy the most? I know it takes a lot of work to put all this together. The planning, as you say, with one ends, we start planning the next one. What have you enjoyed the most about this year's celebration?
Well, this year's celebration, again, it's such a special, it's 75 years, and we tried to go do some extra special things for the event. I mentioned our Junior Ranger badge, but we also have a special 75th anniversary badge that the kids can earn as well. And we just, the event's always a wonderful event, but we just try to add some little extra things to it.
Right. So this is a year to make sure, if you haven't gone the last couple of years, go this year, because you can say
go
you were
this
there.
Year, exactly.
So we can learn a lot more, and to maybe remind yourself, if you've gone before, you're probably still going to see something new if you've gone to previous years.
Yeah, we get a lot of visitors that will come out, locals, and a lot of times they'll tell us, they'll stop by the front desk and they'll see an exhibit that they didn't entirely read, and they learned something new. So
there's always something to learn.
Always something to learn, and always something that you didn't see before.
Great. So a lot of opportunities for people to get involved and to come out and see. And then, like you mentioned earlier, if people want to volunteer, you also have a Birthplace Association. A lot of ways that they can help support what you're doing.
Yeah, we have our the Carver Birthplace Association, which is a wonderful organization. Actually, the Carver Birthplace Association really helped get the park established. And they were kind of a grassroots organization that really campaigned for the establishment of the park. And so they're kind of like our friends group, our partners. They really help us out quite a bit.
So they were there in 1943. They're still there today.
And they're still there today, right.
Continuing to help you build for the future.
And do a great job.
Great. Well, Curtis, I'd like to thank you for sharing information today. I know we've given the website and ways so people can get involved. But before we wrap up, give us the date again. It was Saturday,
July 14th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., free of charge. Just come on out. Bring a lunch if you like. We'll also have a food concession for visitors that come out that didn't purchase anything from the local Diamonds Club. Just come on out and have a great time. And if your interest is history, we have a wonderful guest speaker. But if your interest is in just music, we have lots of different musical groups. Or if you're interested in coming in and seeing some of the exhibitors, you can walk around. And if you have kids, you definitely come out and get that Junior Ranger badge.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your information today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, as well as the park.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you for tuning in this week for Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join us again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.